Okay, after a practice session, what we usually do is going for a talk and a discussion. The reason for that is we have got to support the practice or the path going towards uh, right view, we call it. We will have to support that. So to support what we do is there are 5 supportive factors, one of which is listening supportive factor. So for the listening supportive factor, we have taken 4 foundations of mindfulness as our topic. So in that topic, we have discussed quite a bit, and we have discussed the historical background of 4 foundations of mindfulness and what are these 4 foundations, and then we have discussed what sort of qualitative um, inclusion, so attribute, should be there when we practice 4 foundations of mindfulness. So if I may recap those qualitative attributes, you will have to do it with required energy to curtail your defilement. And then you will have to maintain your mindfulness in such a way that it continues no matter what your object or how your object change. And also the other attribute is, the last attribute is, you should be get disciplined in this world which is basically governed only by greed and hatred. So with those 3 attributes, when you practice these 4 foundations of mindfulness, you will go further in the path. So we have already completed the first section, which is how you become mindful on the body. And to become mindful on the body, Blessed One has given 14 techniques. We discussed these 14 techniques. In the last meeting, we started on the second one, which is being mindful on the sensation. So being mindful of the feelings, right? So we will recite that section once again, and then go a bit deeper into it. So do you have that? Right.
And how bhikkhus does a bhikkhu abide contemplating feelings as feelings? Here, when feeling a pleasant feeling, a bhikkhu understands, I feel a pleasant feeling. When feeling a painful feeling, he understands, I feel a painful feeling. When feeling a neither painful nor pleasant feeling, he understands, I feel a neither painful nor pleasant feeling. When feeling a worldly pleasant feeling, he understands, I feel a worldly pleasant feeling. When feeling an unworldly pleasant feeling, he understands, I feel an unworldly pleasant feeling. When feeling a worldly painful feeling, he understands, I feel a worldly painful feeling. When feeling an unworldly painful feeling, he understands, I feel an unworldly painful feeling. And feeling a worldly, neither painful nor pleasant feeling, he understands, I feel a worldly, neither painful nor pleasant feeling. And feeling an unworldly, neither painful nor pleasant feeling, he understands, I feel an unworldly, neither painful nor pleasant feeling. In this way, he abides contemplating feelings as feelings internally, or he abides contemplating feelings as feelings externally, or he abides contemplating feelings as feelings both internally and externally, or else he abides contemplating in feelings their nature of arising, or he abides contemplating in feelings their nature of vanishing, or he abides contemplating in feelings their nature of both arising and vanishing. Or else, mindfulness that there is feeling, is simply established in him to the extent necessary for bare knowledge and mindfulness. and he abides independent, not clinging to anything in the world. This is how a bhikkhu abides, contemplating feelings as feelings.
Good. Right. So this is the shortest section in the four foundations of mindfulness. And although it is the shortest section when we started last time, we understood the clarity in it. Blessed One is um, giving three different types of feelings here mainly. The three different types are pleasant feeling, unpleasant feeling or painful feeling, and then neither pleasant nor unpleasant feeling. So these are the three basic categories. Those three basic categories are classified further into two, worldly and non-worldly or unworldly, or you call it mundane and spiritual or mundane and sublime, right? So what we discussed in the last section, uh, how feelings and sensations come about. We learned that it's a gradual process. When you keep your attention on the body, you will be able to sharpen your mind on the body. As a result of sharpening your mind on the body, you start seeing or you start thin slicing body with your sharpened mind. As a result, you will be able to see the basic elements of matter which is in the body. And these basic elements are having certain characteristics such as, say, heaviness and lightness. For example, when you take earth element, and when you take water element, you have cohesiveness and flowing nature. And then when you take the heat element, you have coldness and warmth, etc. So these elements you start seeing because of your sharpened mind, because of your mastery over the body. And when you see these things, you may generate within you certain liking or disliking, or pleasant or unpleasant attitude towards these qualities of the basic matter or the basic elements, right? And that mental attribute that you generate is a feeling, right? And if you like whatever the attribute that you experience, then it becomes a pleasant feeling. If you dislike it, then it becomes an unpleasant feeling. And I will have a situation which is very rare in the sense, not that it is rare, people don't know. And that feeling is called neither pleasant nor unpleasant. So it is easy to explain that point in the graphical form. If you take the x-axis or the y-axis, you will have on one side positives and on one side negatives. And all these things are going through zero. Zero is neither positive nor negative, right? So that is how you can intellectualize this neither pleasant nor unpleasant feeling. So we also discussed in the last session the significance of this sensation, why it is so important to understand this. The one reason why it is important is because this is a point, or this is a juncture where you can turn your spiritual path on directly to enlightenment, right? Because enlightenment means depreciation of your craving. So in the 12-point dependent origination, Blessed One is explaining the craving is a result of the sensation. Craving is a result of the feeling. So if you can master your feeling, if you can master your sensation, then what you simply do is you don't allow the craving to overtake you. You don't allow the craving to dictate terms to you. You master the feelings, or you master the sensation. And as a result, feeling, or rather craving, loses its ground. So when it loses its ground, it is depreciating the craving. So therefore, it is very important in the practice. And the other reason what we discussed was, this is the gateway to the mind from the body. Why I say gateway to the mind from the body is, these sensations are our mental attribute to the basic elements. So basic elements are part of the body, basic elements are part of the matter, and the attribute that generate is part of the mind. So therefore, through attributes, through basic elements, you go to the mind. Therefore, it is the gateway to the mind. And also in another discourse, which is called Kim Mulaka Sutta, Blessed One says, Vedana Samosarana Sabbe Dhamma, which means all phenomena relies on feelings. Anything that happens within our physical mental process will be communicated to you, or it will be informed to you only through some sort of feeling, some sort of a sensation. So therefore, anything that happens, good or bad, correct or wrong, doesn't matter. Anything that happens, spiritual or otherwise, anything that happens, you will be able to know only through a sensation or a feeling. So therefore, Blessed One says, anything is depending on the feeling to pass the message. And that is the summary of what we discussed in the previous meeting. Today we are going to go a bit further. Blessed One has mentioned three types of what do you call, feelings, and these three types are divided into two types or two classifications called worldly and spiritually, or worldly and unworldly. So we can try to understand today what these things are and how these things matter in our practice. To explain the worldly pleasant feeling, unpleasant feeling, or neither pleasant nor unpleasant feeling, I would like to first give a small explanation on the pleasant and unpleasant feeling. Pleasant feeling means, as the word suggests, the feelings that are agreeable, feelings that are acceptable, feelings that you like are the pleasant feeling. Unpleasant feelings are the feelings that you don't like, that you can't agree, that you hate, are the unpleasant feelings. And neither pleasant nor unpleasant feelings are the feelings that you at least don't know there is anything like that. So one example for neither pleasant nor unpleasant feeling is in Goenkaji's discourses. The Goenkaji is saying, if you lose your watch, you will cry whole day. You will cry for the whole week. You will cry for the whole month. You will cry for the whole life. But if your friend loses the watch, then you will be worried because he's your friend, but you will not cry as much. But if someone else has loses, and say unknown person, and comes and tell you, and you don't feel it at all, and you will start lecturing him about impermanence as well. So that is simply because you don't feel that as much, because you are not attached to it. So like that, it's just a simple example. Like that, there are instances for the same thing. You will act differently because of the different types of sensations or the feelings that you get. And coming back to worldly, and if those things happen based on your normal sense faculties, sense feel, then they are called worldly. And unworldly are at its highest level. Unworldly or spiritual sensations are at its highest level. It is pleasant when you gain clarity in or absorption in your practice. And it is unpleasant because it is become suffering to maintain spiritual life, or it may be spiritual life, always you sacrifice something and come. So what you sacrifice may be bothering. So therefore, unpleasant sensation will arise in the spiritual life from that, right? Spiritual life is not a rosy path. There are things that you will have to sacrifice. Say, for example, Sunday, this evening, you will have to sacrifice certain things and come. And even when you come here, when you sit down, it is not easy to sit 5 minutes still, right? So those are the unpleasant things that happen. So if you take it in a larger scale, if you go for a longer retreat, this is getting increased by 1,000 folds, right? And if you go permanently, then it may be even more, right? Those are the unpleasant sensations that you will have from the spiritual or unworldly life. And neither pleasant nor unpleasant means fading away of craving and aversion. And when you have your spiritual life, when you sit and practice, and when you keep on observing your breath, and if you can observe the breath, and if you can be with the breath, very good and fantastic meditation that day. And there will have a day you don't see the breath, and breath has faded away, you can't see anything, and then it is just boring. Today it is not very tasty, right? But you know it, object is not there, mindfulness is there, but you are not very thrilled with what is going on. Or when that happens, then you become more and more neutral on the object, and consequently feeling lethargy, or when the boredom sets in, that says neither pleasant nor unpleasant. If it is pleasant, very good. If it is unpleasant, you have something to fight with. When those things are not there, you feel lethargy, you feel bored and things like that. And those are because of neither pleasant nor unpleasant sensation. And neither pleasant nor unpleasant sensation can be explained, can be talked about only with at least practitioner who has practiced at least few minutes. And those who have not practiced at all, they simply don't understand this concept of neither pleasant nor unpleasant. But most of their time is neither pleasant or no unpleasant. So we'll talk about it bit in detail later. So if you take this pleasant sensation, worldly pleasant sensation, to have worldly pleasant sensation, you will have to undoubtedly satisfy your senses. You will have to satisfy your ear, you will have to satisfy your eye, you will have to satisfy your tongue, you will have to satisfy your body, you will have to satisfy your mind, nose, everything. You will have to satisfy those faculties. So to do that, it just not appear for you, objects does not appear for you to be happy. You will have to work for it. You will have to work hard for it. You will have to energize yourself to do that. Some effort is required in doing those things. Whereas, if you take, on the other hand, noble path or spiritual life, to get any good sensation or pleasant feeling in a spiritual path, any effort is not, an effort is required, but that effort has got nothing to do with satisfying your sense faculties. It is basically effort not to do anything. So you can call it effortless basically. And in noble pleasant feeling, it is not based on any sense faculties. They are based on spiritual faculties, your concentration, your faith, and things like that. And to satisfy worldly pleasant sensations, sense objects are compulsory. When sense objects are not there, you will not get any worldly happiness if there are no things to see. In the TV, you will keep on changing the channels, right? Because there is nothing that makes you happy, right? So you definitely require something to your ear, something to your eyes, as an object for you to gain some pleasant feeling. But whereas spiritual pleasant feeling is concerned, lesser the sensual object, your feelings, spiritual feelings become higher, right? So it does not rely on the sense objects such as forms, things that you can see, sounds, taste, and things like that are not material in the spiritual world. And because of this, in the worldly pleasant feelings, you have a competition, because to get these sense objects, which are very limited, you will have to fight for it, right? When you have one, you cannot be happy with one, although you require one. You want more of those things, and you want that to your family, you want that to your society, you want that to your country. So when that happens, you start grabbing those things as much as possible, and that generates some sort of a competition. People are fighting to get these sense objects. As you know, we have seen in TV, when the COVID started, people were fighting even for toilet papers, right? So it goes to that level when you rely your happiness on the sense objects. Of course, I don't know what pleasant feeling you will get from the toilet papers, but but you can see, when you see the struggles going between political parties, struggles going between countries, what these people are doing is they are trying to grab as much resources as possible to create pleasant feelings for others. So it has created competition. It has created rivalry between parties, rivalry between countries, rivalry between ethnic groups, rivalry between every section of the society. So whereas spiritual pleasant feeling is concerned, absolutely no fight. It's absolute victory. We just come and sit. Nobody will say, go away, I want to sit. No, we know we can put about 100 people in this hall, and we know how many people are here. So it's people don't fight for these type of places. So it's an absolute victory for us. This morning session, there was a lady who came here, and we invited that lady to participate in the English program. And what she said was, I come here every day. This place is so quiet. And that is because there is no fight in these places. People are not fighting to come here. And we are fighting to get people down here. So anyway, people don't like absolute victories. They want a hell of a fight to earn victory, and which is a suffering, which has got nothing to do with pleasant feeling. Anyway, when there is no fight, when there is no quarrels, when there are no wars, what happens is, in spiritual pleasant feeling, you may feel it is a bit lonely. You may feel it is sleepy, and that is sort of a pleasant feeling in the spiritual world. And your gain is a pain for others in the worldly pleasant feeling, because you compete and you grab what other people may have enjoyed. Say, for example, in Australia, we know what happened in so many years ago, and this was grabbed from the Aboriginal, and it's a gain for one group of people, and others had to suffer. And the same thing in our countries. And our countries were grabbed by a group of people, and as a result, people who are actually living in the country had to suffer. So in worldly pleasant feeling, it is, I have taken in very dramatic way, but this is the same thing even in our day-to-day life. We gain something means and another person has lost it and it's a pain for that person. And whereas noble or spiritual feeling is concerned, it's gain all around. And when you just come and sit here, you don't disturb anybody, you don't fight with anybody, and as a result, everyone is happy. There is no fight, and um, everyone wants a share in the worldly pleasant feelings. Say, for example, when you go and work, your government is waiting to get its cut, and the superannuation is waiting to get its cut, and landlord is waiting for its share, or the bank is waiting for its share. So when you in the pleasant feeling in the worldly sense, and although you get a pleasant feeling and people are waiting to grab part of your pleasant feeling, whereas really someone would like to share the pleasant feeling that we have in noble or spiritual path. So if we say we have a program this evening and people will have 1,001 excuses why we cannot participate in there, because no one wants to share it. It is that pleasant feeling is something which is not based on sense faculties. Since people are aware only of the pleasant feeling, the sense faculties, it is very hard for someone to understand what pleasant feeling you get in it. So the problem in the worldly pleasant feeling is that this pleasure doesn't last. It evaporates so fast, and therefore you will have to keep working hard every second. But whereas in the noble or sublime sensation, sublime pleasant feeling, what happens is it is pleasant when you have it. It is pleasant even in the future. It does not easily fade away. Even if it's fade away, and because of your mindfulness, you become more and more open to it. You start accepting the reality, and you don't struggle to maintain the pleasant feeling. You know the pleasant feeling that you have gained in the spiritual world is by giving up. So as a result of that, your sense of giving up becomes so high, and the loss of pleasant feeling in the spiritual world is increasing, at least actually the pleasantness that you will have. So therefore there is no struggle there. And in the worldly pleasant feelings, you don't get it cheap. You don't get it free. There will have always a price tag attached to it. Whereas in the spiritual world, especially in a country like this, there will have a small price tag because you may have to pay for accommodation and things like that. But in Sri Lanka, it's all free. In some other countries, it's all free. There is no price tag. So, and the other thing is worldly pleasant feeling. It is very stressful and it's mentally challenging, and you may have distress or depression, etc., because you have to work so hard to maintain this changing and the losing, reducing nature of the pleasant feeling. But whereas in the spiritual world, there is nothing as such. It is mentally pleasing because you learn how to give up things. So the other thing is in the worldly pleasant feelings, it is very social. And if you want to keep your sense faculties happy, sense faculties energized, not only you can organize a nice party, you can organize a trip, you can organize a camping event, and so many people will come. Whereas in the spiritual present feeling, in spiritual happiness, what you like is not the groups, you like the solitude. So it's higher the solitude, your higher the pleasant feeling that you will get. And sometimes spiritual world, this may be called, or not the spiritual world, in the worldly normal world, unlearned disciples may call the solitude as antisocial attitude, because they don't simply understand the pleasant feelings that they get in the spiritual world. So the highest pleasure by doing all these things, highest pleasure that you will have in the worldly present feeling is the attraction to the opposite sex. All what we do is what we wear, what we look, how we look like, how we smell, and how shape our bodies, and all these things are done to attract or to become attracted to the opposite sex. So that is the highest pleasure that you have in the worldly pleasant feeling. And seeing the opposite sex is so thrilling, and their smell even better, and their sound, their taste, their contact, thinking about them is giving so much pleasure. It is so much so, even when you come into the what do you call spiritual world, the negatives or the shadows of those highest worldly pleasure may disturb you as thoughts, as images, right? So it is so powerful. So everything in the worldly pleasant feeling is focused, is centered for the attraction to the opposite gender. And spiritual pleasure, pain for a commoner, or the unlearned disciple. So which means if you tell someone, come here and we will meditate for half an hour, it's a pain for them, because you don't do anything, you don't see anything, you don't listen to anything. Just sit, close your eyes, and observe the nonsense breath anyway which is happening. You don't like it, and it is a pain. Whereas it's sense pleasure, on the other hand, is a pain for the person in the spiritual life. Person in the spiritual life, person in the solitude world, they don't like to have too much sense pleasure, and they will have sense pleasure only to the extent that is required. Say for example food, say for example shelter, say for example medicine, say for example whatever the clothing necessary. It's very limited. They don't go into extreme. Having too much sense pleasure is a trouble for them. I know there are certain monks, they don't want to keep anything in their room because it becomes a headache. But whereas when you go to any of our houses, they are filled with goods and things. And sometimes there are no space for the people to move. So many things stuck in our houses. And trying to make this worldly pleasure pleasurable and permanent is called the civilization. And it has become the universal norm today. Everyone is trying to avoid the impermanence of things and make all these things permanent. And as a result, what happens is they have created so much hatred in the world towards the unpleasantness. If you see anything that disturbs your pleasantness or that you like, you don't hesitate to destroy that unpleasant thing, no matter what, no matter how important it is, no matter how innocent it is. You will very easily destroy that. And you absolutely have no awareness of this neither pleasant nor unpleasant, and you will know only the permanent notion of the pleasant feeling. And these two are called the development: unawareness or avoiding of neither pleasant neither pleasant nor unpleasant, and making the pleasant feeling permanent. These two are called the development. And if you know how to do those things, if you know more and more ways to do those things, if you do more and more researches to do those things, then you are well recognized and you are well educated, and you will get all the prizes possible. And then you become rich as well by doing all that. So when we are so much involved in it, what happens to us is over a period of time, we don't understand. We are sinking in the same honey ball that we have been trying to suck from. Right? That is what is happening for the ants. When they see a honey bottle, they go and try to suck honey, and without their knowledge, they are drowned in that, and they dry in the honey bottle. And it's the same thing that is happening in the world today. Therefore, the so-called civilization trying to make this pleasantness permanent, Sigmund Freud has said ambiguity of civilization, something which cannot be made permanent. We are running like dogs trying to bite the tail, just going round and round and round and round. Nothing is happening. Um, this is the situation in the worldly pleasant feeling. And you may see that I have painted a negative picture about worldly pleasant feeling. If you feel like that, that is not because of your fault. That is the world we live in. That is the image that has been created in our mind. That is the perception that governs us. So realizing that I have some attitude like that, which means you are learning to react to what you are hearing, right? So that reaction itself can be considered as way to understand this worldly pleasant feelings and how it works and its nature. And when it comes to noble pleasure starts with the charity. Instead of fighting with people, when people fight to get things and grab things, what you do is you start giving things. What you do is you start sharing things. And you do that to get some pleasant feeling. And that pleasant feeling is not from any of the sense faculties. That is just by sacrificing things, objects that you have to gain sense satisfaction. So therefore, charity is the first noble pleasure. And it goes further. You understand after some time, doing this charity in this manner is also a bit friction. Therefore, to avoid friction, what you do is you go beyond the charity and become more virtuous by not doing anything. Instead of doing something and giving people, you try to give people more things by without killing animals. When you don't kill animals, you give more than food, more than shelter. You give life to them, and you people will not, or animals will not be afraid of you. So you give no fear. when you observe precepts, when you become virtuous. So that is a higher pleasure than the charitable pleasure that you will get. And there basically what happens is you restrain your physical and verbal deeds. When you restrain your physical and verbal deeds, you become more happier than being generous, right? So it even goes further when you restrain your mentality. Mentality restrainment gives you even more happiness, because you will not only stop physical and verbal deeds, you will start observing how these physical and verbal deeds are being based, physical and verbal deeds are being created, right? So when you start observing that, when you go to the root of how things happen, it becomes even more pleasurable, because we are going into a territory that which we have never seen, never observed. So this is the pleasant feeling. And if you go to unpleasant feeling, I have already painted the picture of how unpleasant the mundane world is while I was explaining mundane pleasant feeling. In summary, uh, to maintain, since we have got to struggle to maintain the pleasant feelings in the mundane world, it's a struggle to maintain and control pleasure. And it's a struggle to stop or slow down the impermanence. So what happens is this struggle is the identification of for most of us. So if we ask people to come, why they can't come is they are still struggling to make themselves happy by satisfying their sense faculties. So they are so busy. They have things back to back. I have meetings back to back. So they are very happy to identify themselves in the suffering, right? So identifying ourselves in suffering is the highest addiction in the world. And you think that it is the best thing that is possible. Whereas what it simply do is the world is shaped all around, left, right, center, to suffer. So at the end of the day, we end up with the struggling to live rather than living actually, right? So that is the mundane world. Struggling to live only, you never live. Because your sense faculties can never ever be satisfied. Sense faculties are not having a bottom. It's a bucket without a bottom, bottomless bucket. So however much you put into your eyes will never say enough, stop. However much sounds you put, it will never say enough, stop. When you are tired, you will stop it. But following morning when you wake up, you start all over again. So it never stops. And the spiritual unpleasant feeling, it challenges when sense faculties are restrained, right? So that is an unpleasant feeling that you have in the spiritual world. When the sense faculties are restrained, the sense desire, ill will, and sloth and torpor, etc., will challenge. That sometimes is an unpleasant feeling in the spiritual world. And challenges in maintaining the posture is an unpleasant feeling in the spiritual world. Sometimes we can't just sit cross-legged for some time. It bothers you, right? It makes you suffer, physical suffering. That's an unpleasant feeling in the spiritual world. But that unpleasant feeling is something that you will have to undergo and that you will have to go through to cross the river, right? To cross the actual, to reach the actual pleasant feeling or the actual reality of mind and matter. And this unpleasant feeling arises also in the spiritual world when practice is developing. The practice is developing when we are entering into the unknown areas, unknown experiences, then that may become a challenge. Say, for example, when you observe, keep on observing your breath subsides to an extent that you can't observe it. And you may feel getting choked because you don't feel your breath. Or you may try to keep your attention to the breath, and you become more and more energized, you're more and more agitated. So those experiences may also be unpleasant sometimes. Once again, it's the gateway to the next stage, the spiritual world. So spiritual world, what simply gives you is an alternative, not to suffer, alternative to give up things. So, and coming to neither pleasant no unpleasant feelings in the mundane world, as I said earlier, this is not applicable. In the mundane world, neither pleasant nor unpleasant has been completely destroyed. So you can't at least see, think, hear about it, right? How it has been destroyed is, it has been destroyed by the telephone. Everyone is having a mobile, and if you have just a time not doing anything, you just take the phone and call someone and keep chatting. So you reduce, or you avoid the time that you have not to feel anything, right? And it has been destroyed by newspapers. It has been destroyed by the TV. So if you don't have anything to do, go to the couch, put your leg on the stool, and turn on the TV. So that is how TV is not something without which you can't live. It is something that just takes your time, and it is getting worse and worse in the present day. There are movies not only in the big theater, even in the phone, the smallest theater, and you can live stream, you can record it and watch later. So many things to destroy the neither pleasant nor unpleasant situation in the world. So you have video games, you have so many bars, and during the COVID-19, the biggest problem the world was having, the bars were closed. So people were not having places to go, and they were horrible. When during COVID, it is a big lesson that everyone observed, and they can't live in this neither pleasant nor unpleasant situation. They can't live in zero. They want either positive or negative. It should move from negative to positive, positive. That is the world people are looking for. And if you will have to stay without doing anything at home, then you should be really sick and bedridden. Then only you will stay. Otherwise, it is horrible. You can't do that at all. You build such a big house, but you will be there only when you sleep and urinate and defecate. And all of the time you are somewhere else in the bar or in the camp, destroying your neither pleasant nor unpleasant situation. And so many parties, so many social events, so many ways of interacting socially. There are social media, so many social media techniques and tactics. So with all that, what it has taken is our time that we have to experience our neither pleasant nor unpleasant situation. So therefore, destroying neither pleasant nor unpleasant situation or the feeling is a huge industry in the entire world. We can definitely live without Bollywood. We can definitely live without Hollywood. We can definitely live without Stan. We can definitely live without Facebook, Instagram, that gram, and all that. But all these are simply destroying our neither pleasant nor unpleasant. So in that context, when you see most of our time is neither pleasant nor unpleasant. But we don't know because we have destroyed it. So, we have the same thing in a noble life, the spiritual path. The spiritual path, what happens is when you get to neither pleasant nor unpleasant, you feel bored and you feel sleepy, right? And you feel lethargy. Why all these things are happening is because in the spiritual world, you come out of the senses, and when you come out of the senses, what you practice is to be with little, and to be with little, what you require is avoid the passion. So when you become more and more dispassionate, when your dispassion improves, then the sleepiness, boredom, lethargy sets in because you are not attracted now, at least to the breath or at least to the pleasant sensation that you have in the body. You observe your body and it was so pleasant and you have been observing it for such a long time. And even that, you don't create any love, you don't create any desire towards it. So your dispassion sets in quietly. And when your dispassion sets in quietly, how you can identify, understand that your dispassion sets in and you don't generate hatred is when you feel bored, is when you feel sleepy, is when you feel lethargy. And Blessed One says dispassion is the highest Dhamma. Virago Setto Dhamma is the word of the Buddha. If you can be dispassionate, then it is the highest achievement in the spiritual world. What we do instead is, if you feel bored while walking, you go and drink some water or you go and urinate. So that is how the dispassion or the neither pleasant nor unpleasant situation, when it is setting in, that is how we destroy that in the spiritual world. Or you feel, oh, now it is enough. Maybe I have set the alarm wrong and you get up. Or you just open your eyes and see. And those are the things, innocent things that we do in the spiritual world when the neither pleasant nor unpleasant situation arises. So there is a nice story on that. And that story is in a discourse called Chula Sutta. In Chula Sutta, it's a story between a husband and wife. Husband is visiting the Blessed One and he is practicing with the Blessed One, and he has achieved the third stage of enlightenment. Because he achieved the third stage of enlightenment, he quietly generated dispassion towards the worldly activities and worldly living. One day when he came home, he said his wife came running. He's a very rich man, came running down the stairs and went to the entrance. And when the husband was coming, you welcome the husband with a kiss and a hug and all that. And that day when this lady was coming, husband said, "Don't come, don't hug me, don't touch me." Then she was very shocked and asked, "Are you attracted to any other women?" Then he said, "No, there is no other women for me. I have only you. But even you don't touch me." And then she asked, "Why? What's happening?" Then he started the story. This is what happened, and this is how I'm working now. And then I want to completely give all these things to you. And then I want to go and live with the Blessed One or ordain. Then wife asked, "That's good, you can go, but can't I go?" She also wanted to go. Then she said, husband said, "No, it is not a possibility. It is not easy for women," and things like that. But she never listened to him. She insisted that even she wanted to go, and both of them kept the door of the palace and the what do you call treasury of the palace open for people to come and take anything. They went and ordained and practiced. Funny enough, The wife attained full enlightenment while husband was still in the third stage. And then wife came down from her monastery, and while walking on the street, husband sees her, and husband wanted to check whether this woman is doing okay, or whether she has come back once again to go to the normal life. And he's asking few questions. The first question he's asking, it's a series of questions, and I'm taking just one section, which is relevant to the talk here. And he is asking her, her name is Venerable Dhammadinna, what is the pleasant and unpleasant feeling in the pleasant feeling? It's a bit of a funny question, twisted question. In the pleasant feeling, what is the pleasant and unpleasant feeling? And when they asked it, he was able to understand it, and she said, having the pleasant feeling is the pleasant feeling, and the quiet deterioration and the vanishing of the pleasant feeling is the unpleasantness. So having is pleasant, and fading it away, fading it off is the unpleasant feeling. And then he was very happy with the answer, and then went to the second one and asked, what is the pleasant and unpleasant feeling in the unpleasant feeling? It's obviously the other way around. When you have the unpleasant feeling, it is painful. When you don't have the unpleasant feeling, then it is pleasurable. And then came to the third one, which is really funny. For worldly living worldly beings, or the commoners, or the unlearned disciples, then he is asking the question, what is the pleasant and unpleasant feeling of the neither pleasant nor unpleasant feeling? When we don't know neither pleasant and nor unpleasant feeling, we are not thinking of the pleasant and unpleasant section in there. And there she says, when you know that you are in the neither pleasant nor unpleasant feeling, then it is pleasurable. And when you don't know, then you go and urinate. Then you go and drink water. Then you keep on thinking on things that you don't know. That is, you in a way, you hate that. That is because you don't know. But if you know that you are in boredom, then boredom gets bored. Boredom gets bored. So therefore, the pleasantness in the neither pleasant nor unpleasant feeling is knowing it. So it is very important in the 4 foundations of mindfulness. Maintain your knowing. This is why the Blessed One says all the time, Pajanati, Pajanati, Pajanati. Be aware, be aware, be aware. If you are aware, whatever it is, then you will be leading to happiness. And if you don't go anything beyond awareness, then you will create your own hell. Nobody else is created. You have achieved, you have reached the neither pleasant nor unpleasant. Even there, when you have the pleasant path, you may still go the wrong direction. So with that story, I would like to conclude the session, wishing everyone knowing of neither pleasant nor unpleasant feelings. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Teruvan Saranai. Do you want to ask any questions or yes. Right.
I wasn't actually going to ask any questions today, but the topic was good, so I thought I might. So there was this thing that was happening, which I would call the primary object that's appearing, so my night one. And the description is, it's like an oasis or like a bubble, and inside there you have like a stillness and peace, and outside there's a big party of objects happening. And I noticed when it first was happening, it was just a neutral place. But actually, lately, what was happening is when I keep looking there, there's a high amount of happiness available. Um, so I'll put this in the category of unworldly or spiritual happiness. What's the question? There's a question. I forgot it.
So that's very good. The why it is good is because you have not kept that perception, you have not made yourself identified with it. So if you forget the question, it's a good thing. You are not, attached even to that. So the question is answered. So when you, if you remember it, you can bring it out maybe next time.
It wasn't good. I was thinking about it when you were talking. Like, oh, this is a question that. Anyway, I'll ask a separate question. Maybe I'll remember in the meantime. When you say feelings and sensations, like I always put the category of feelings as like pleasant, unpleasant, neutral, and sensations. Like I consider that like in reference to body, so like a material thing.
Yeah.
But like, I guess in full foundation of mindfulness, they come under the same category. How does that happen?
I mean, some people are using the word sensation. So I'm used to calling it sensation. The actual word that has to be used is the feelings.
Okay.
Right.
Good.
So it's the mental, with the mental attribute towards sensation, then it becomes feelings.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Because it's like that's the physical part, and the feelings is a mental component.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So, but yeah, there's not. I guess not everything is based on the physical. Well, I guess the unworldly part is it's not a sensation. I guess unworldly feeling.
It is to a certain extent it goes with sensation, and after a certain level, it goes beyond materiality, and it becomes highly material in the sense non-material realm, but still you will have a perception of it. You will be knowing what it is. Yeah. So in that sense, you can't always call it sensation.
Yeah. Okay.
But having said that, since the Blessed One has said, Vedana Samosarna Sabbedam, all phenomena are based on feeling. Even this perception you will know with some form of material movement, which is very subtle. There, the main ingredient is the mental component. Material component is negligible. I would say 1 to 99. So, because for something to exist, it can't exist just mentally. There will have some matter, but invisible.
I think I can't remember the specific question, but I think it was something like this, the first one that I had. So I was always considering this object, this immaterial object, as like different to the space, empty space. But I have a feeling they're like the same thing. Oh yeah, this is the question. Yeah, the characteristics I thought were different of the primary object to the empty space. Yeah, but I think they're the same thing. Sorry, the part that I was going to ask is, I don't think it's an object. I think that place is always available. I just didn't know how to see it or look at it.
Right.
Is that correct?
Yeah, it is correct. Not only in that sense, it is correct even in the sense of the final attainment. It is there. It is always there. We don't know how to reach. So actually in practice, what we see is something that we have, but things which we have never looked at. So when you reach there, you will, this has been there all the time with me. why the hell I was doing something else. Yeah. Okay. So with that, we will say sadhu to transfer all our merits to all the living beings.